Many consumers are feeling as they buy things like gas and groceries amid new warnings about inflation worries and the Dow's worst week in months. White House correspondent Kevin Corke on how all of this could impact President Biden's massive spending plans. Good evening, Kevin.
Evening, Shannon. Larry Summers, a guy that you and I both know a lot about, is a former top economic advisor back in the Obama administration. And if you've been listening to him, you know that he has quite forcefully spoken out against Biden's spending plans as being the, quote, least responsible economic policy he's seen in 40 years. Now, the reason is, in his opinion, calamitously high inflation. And the concern has gotten so real over at the White House that they've actually created a task force to address some of the forces behind it. Stocks ended sharply lower today, with the Dow and S&P 500 both posting their worst weekly performances in months. That after comments from Fed official James Bullard that the U.S. Central Bank just might raise interest rates sooner than previously expected, and that spooked investors. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell maintained that a recent surge in consumer prices is likely, quote, transitory, but warned the increase may ultimately be higher and more persistent than expected.
What I'm supportive of is inflation in line with the Fed's targets and interest rates at slightly higher levels that would give the Fed the ability to use monetary policy to address weakness in the economy.
So, yes, Virginia, there is inflation. And to hear the feds tell it, it's going to last for a while, if only temporarily, with most economists now predicting modest inflation from anywhere between 2 to 5% in the coming months. Up, they say, but that's certainly a real downer for consumers who've already seen inflation push up prices for everything from used cars and gas to washers and dryers and even airfare, leaving some 71% in the latest Monmouth survey concerned about White House policies driving up inflation. And we've been here before. See this quote about how inflation threatens to devour the paychecks of hardworking Americans, with Americans paying more for everything from gasoline and groceries? Well, that was from Nancy Pelosi back in 2008, warning lawmakers about the dangers of rampant inflation. Fast forward to 2021, and you can see why Republicans feel poised to take advantage.
So as this starts to hurt the American people and their wallets, it's going to be troublesome for the administration and especially for Democrats in the House when they try to get reelected in 2 years.
Now, certainly that is the prevailing wisdom on Capitol Hill. However, political experts note that betting that inflation will sway large chunks of the electorate, frankly, hasn't always panned out. But you'll recall back in 2008 when the GOP was really talking about concerns in inflation, and that was after the financial crisis. Well, in the 2010 midterms, yes, there was a big GOP surge. However, that hinged a lot more on federal spending and health care, not so much on inflation. But when you link rising gas prices and things like cars becoming more expensive and appliances becoming more expensive, well, that's when inflation can really sour the mood, and that in turn impacts life at the ballot box, Shannon.
It does. It's always about the economy, stupid,
yep,
as
exactly.
they say. Not referring to the brilliant Kevin Corke. Okay, so Kevin, we have a new holiday officially on the books, Juneteenth, a holiday, and what a joyous, wonderful thing that we probably should have been celebrating for a long time. But now that it adds into the mix, this means federal employees are getting 44 paid days off a year. I'm not great at math, but that's about 9 full weeks of paid time off. We all have family and friends here living in the D.C. area, a lot of federal workers. But what do you make of that now? Are we going to have to start giving back some holidays at some point?
I have to admit, it surprised me when I learned that number today. I thought, well, that's got to be quite a jolt to the taxpayer purse strings. Just to put it in perspective, Shannon, there are about 2.1 million civilian federal employees, another 1.3 million active duty military personnel, and more than 500,000 Postal Service employees. And before the new holiday, they already received pay for 10 federal holidays, 13 sick days, and 20 vacation days on average per year. And according to the auditors over at OpenTheBooks.com, they estimate those benefits cost taxpayers about $22.6 billion annually. And then you throw in the new Juneteenth holiday, well, that'll add to the total. And by the way, if Democrats get their way, this won't be the only holiday they'll be adding to the federal dole. They also would like to add an Election Day holiday. And that would mean federal employees would get another day, paid day off every couple of years. I guess you could say this is the gift that keeps on giving. We're not sure if that'll happen, but the Democrats on Capitol Hill would like to see that, Shannon.
They would. And we have to remember, federal workers, when you take these government jobs, a lot of times you're taking a lesser salary that you could get in the private sector,
True.
different experiences.
Yep.
But everybody who gets these federal jobs says the benefits package is a huge part of it. I feel like some of these holidays are going to have to start lobbying to stay on the schedule. If we keep adding, we got to make decisions. In the meantime, thank you to all of our federal workers and friends and neighbors here in the D.C. area. And Kevin, we've got a lot more to talk about in just minutes. Will you come back?
I will come right back. I'll see you soon.